where Olympic gymnasts such as Julianne McNamara, Tracy Talavera, and Sports World's Nancy Thies-Marshall developed their talents. Eugene, Oregon, athletic centerpiece of the great Pacific Northwest, which today has become the gathering place for the cream of America's outstanding female gymnasts. We're at Mac Court on the campus of the University of Oregon before a standing room-only crowd for the Emerald Cup Gymnastics. This is Charlie Jones and Nancy Thies-Marshall, and we have outstanding competition today, in particular 2 young ladies who have very strong medal-winning possibilities for the 1984 Olympic Games in Los Angeles.
Charlie, you're talking about Tracy Talavera and Julianne McNamara, both of whom are current world medalists. But, you know, the strength of this competition is not only in those two, but we have virtually every member of the recent World Championship team competing here, including veteran Kathy Johnson and a newcomer by the name of Tammy Smith that everyone's really excited about.
Also, one thing that we want to check is, what is our status 2 years before the Games? What really are our possibilities?
You know, I think we have a good crop of kids here to give us an idea of just how far along we are on that road to Los Angeles.
And also joining us on the telecast to talk with the young ladies is Bart Connor. Bart?
Thanks, Charlie. You know, Mac Court is a great place for events like this. They really go wild for gymnastics here. And of course, this is Tracy and Julianne's home court. So I think it'll be a great event, and I'll be on the floor getting a closer look at the girls.
The women's vault has already been completed here before this very knowledgeable crowd, and the winner was Tracy Talavera. Let's take a look at her vault.
And a very determined Tracy starts off the competition with a dynamic vault. You can see her running down that runway ready to explode off the horse. She's going to do a handspring front somersault. Look at the extension, the height on the vault, and has a solid landing. One of the best vaults I've ever seen Tracy do.
Tracy's winning score, a 9.8 to start the competition. The official result in the women's vault. And Tracy is now with Bart Connor. Bart?
Hey, Tracy, I've never seen you do a better vault. What do you think?
Well, it was pretty good.
That's usually one of your best events. But let me know, when you're running down that runway, what's going through your mind before you hit the vaulting horse?
Well, mainly I just think, God, I want to stick this thing.
You felt pretty good about that?
Yeah, pretty good.
What I want to know is Bill Ballister, when he gave you the award, got to give you a kiss. Do I get to?
No.
Oh, thanks a lot.
That may be the first time in his life that Bart Connor has ever struck out. The next event is the uneven parallel bars. And leading it off from Westminster, Maryland, is 15-year-old Tammy Smith. And earlier, Nancy asked her if she ever worries about anything.
What if I fall and, you know, get a bad score and everyone will laugh? And I always interview.
She may always worry about bad scores, but with that smile, she won't have to worry about interviews. Here's Tammy Smith on the uneven bars.
Tammy is an outstanding newcomer that everybody is expecting exciting things from in the future. Good, solid front somersault for a mount. There's her giant swing. Into another one. Real good control here. Tammy has good extension in her legs. Clear hip circle to a handstand pirouette. Fly away with a double back somersault. There's a routine Tammy can be happy with.
Tammy Smith, who has traveled more than 2,500 miles from her home in Maryland for this event in Eugene, Oregon.
Watch the way Tammy gets everyone's attention by this explosive mount. It's a front somersault on the bar, and if you over-rotate, you can just keep on going to your face on the ground, but Tammy makes it right on schedule. Good control on her free hip circles and her giant swing.
Tammy Smith's score, a 9.5, and that ties her with Kathy Johnson. Next up is Julianne McNamara, the current national champion in this event.
And not only is Julianne the national champion, she's also a world medalist in this event. Bronze medal to recent world championships. A unique mount called the McNamara. Push back over the low bar, right into a back stalder. Very good control. Julianne's asset on this event is her strength. Very clean giant swing right into a very difficult dismount. Good routine for Julianne.
16-year-old Julianne McNamara, virtuoso of the uneven bars.
You're so right, Charlie. Julianne is very highly regarded around the world on this event, and you can see why. Very good control on everything she does.
Julianne, a very athletic performer. Her score is a 9.8. Julianne McNamara takes the lead, and we'll be back with more of the uneven parallel bars competition. For the standing room only crowd at Mac Court in Eugene, Oregon, is Tracy Talavera, the national all-around champion.
And, Charlie, a few years ago, Tracy was the national champion on this event also. There, hip circle right to a handstand. Push front somersault. That's great there. There's her hop change. A very difficult move. Another clear back hip circle. Boy, full twisting dismount. Tremendous job for Tracy.
And remember that Julianne McNamara leads this event with a 9.8.
We mentioned when we saw Tracy on the vault that she was a very determined girl. Well, we see that determination here on the uneven parallel bar. Very steady routine for Tracy. You know, the last couple of meets, she's had some problems beating Julianne in the all-around. And it'll be interesting to see if the hometown crowd helps her as she goes after that crown.
Tracy Talavera, the uneven parallel bars, and her score is a 9.7. So Julianne McNamara continues to lead this event with a 9.8. And that will bring up 16-year-old Gina Stallone, who has traveled across the country from her home in Wyoming, Pennsylvania. She's a member of the U.S. World Games team.
Jump straddle over the low bar. Nice full pirouette. Oh.
What happened?
The bars definitely look too small for her. What that means is the most important thing to a gymnast during her bar routine is that they be set correctly. The distance between the high bar and the low bar is set to fit her body. It was obvious that Gina came in, let's watch her, came in a little bit too high. She hit almost at her waist. She does. And you're really supposed to hit below the hip bone. That is very painful. I don't know if she'll be able to compete again.
What is the ruling in international meets?
Well, normally they don't allow you to compete if the problem has been that you did not set your bars correctly, so we'll have to see what happens.
All right, here is Sherry Mann, 16 years of age, from Pontiac, Maryland.
And there's a tuck front somersault. Clear hip circle, full twist. Not quite on top of the high bar there. Sherry has some surprising moves right here. Watch this. Push to a handstand. Right into a front somersault, full twist.
Sherry Mann was third in the all-around last year here at the Emerald Cup.
Here comes her dismount. Free hip circle, back somersault. Very flashy dismount.
Sherry Mann with the applause that she so rightfully deserves. We have just received word that Gina Stallone will receive a second opportunity. On the uneven bars, Sherry Mann's score a 9.7. And here's Gina Stallone.
And this will certainly be a test of Gina's competitive drive. See if she can put aside the problem and go for her routine. Straddle over. Nice full twist. Oh, those bars look good. Dynamic front somersault. Good clear hip circle. So far, solid routine. Toe on. Back somersault off. Boy, what a competitor.
My stomach hurt, though, every time she took a beat off the bar.
You know, a lot of people wonder how in the world you can beat those bars like the girls do. And the way Gina came in during the first routine, she'll actually have a bone bruise because she hit those bones. But here on this routine, she's right back in shape. You really have to put everything out of your mind and just concentrate on your routine. There's a full pirouette. Not quite over the bar. Look at the amplitude, though, here on this front somersault. there that Gina's got her concentration all together.
Gina's score, a 9.7, and she's with Bart Counter. Bart?
Gina, what happened on an even bar?
Well, my coach set the bars skinnier, like it was supposed to be at the bottom of 4, and he set it at the top of 4, so...
That hurt?
Yeah.
You okay now?
I'm okay.
You gonna handle this the rest of this meet?
Sure.
Okay, good luck.
Thanks.
Julianne McNamara wins the uneven parallel bars, and this is her first win in this competition.
Both Julianne and Tracy had super routines, and they're keeping the all-around race really close. And I think that Gina Stallone showed what gymnasts are made of by a fine performance.
Eugene, Oregon for the Emerald Cup Gymnastics. The next event for the ladies is the balance beam, and we have another medal winner. Tracy Talavera won the bronze medal in the World Championship.
But the field, again, is very deep, and I know that a lot of the girls are going to be throwing new tricks, so if the routines are hit, it's going to be a super competition.
The balance beam is one of the most demanding of all the events, and in this event, as in the other events, you hear the gymnasts use two words, difficulty and risk. They're not the same. We asked Nancy to explain.
Have you ever wondered how judges came up with the scores that they do? We're going to take a look at one aspect of judging on the balance beam. Gymnasts are required to do A, B, and C moves. I've asked Tracy Talavera to give us some examples of these moves. Tracy's doing a back walkover, which is a relatively simple move. That's an A. Now, if you add a back handspring, you're adding difficulty, and that goes up to a B. Even though a back handspring is a B move, if you put two of them together, the second back handspring has its value raised to a C. One way a gymnast can add bonus points to her score is by adding the element of risk. Now, risk is not necessarily the possibility of injury, but rather the possibility of not completing a stunt because it's so difficult. One way to get credit for risk is by taking these B or C moves and doing them 3 in a row. Tracy's going to do the back handspring. She does 1, 2, and adding a third one not only gives her a C move, but also adds risk.
Julianne McNamara in the beam.
And in the audience, Julianne's family, her sister, and her mom and dad. Avid supporters. And probably a little nervous at this point.
We'll be watching for the difficulty and risk in Julianne's routines.
Good press handstand. Watch this here. A one-armed handstand. Takes a combination of balance and strength. There's a full turn. Watch the tempo of Julianne's routine as she performs. That's something that a lot of girls... Nice layout back somersault. A lot of girls lose the tempo when they get so nervous up on the beam, but Julianne tends to have it down really well. Back handspring, right into another back handspring. Press to handstand. There's her planche. Into a back hip circle.
She seems to work with the equipment rather than against it.
Looking a little reserved here. There's a nice straddle jump. That's very difficult. High stack somersault. Here comes her dismount. Full twisting back somersault. Not one of Julianne's better routines. I think she held back a bit.
Yeah, from her expression, I think she realizes that also. Let's take another look.
A look at some strength and originality in Julianne's routine. Press to handstand, right into a planche. Also takes balance.
Julianne's score a 9.75, and that brings up her teammate, Tracy Talavera. Their coach, Dick Mulvihill, normally leaves the arena during the beam competition. He says his stomach just can't take it. But since he's the meet director here, he has to stay and watch.
And one of the things he'll be watching for is Tracy's innovative new mount. Round off, right into a back handspring onto the balance beam. She hits it solid. You know, I look at Tracy and sometimes wonder if she doesn't have suction cups on the bottom of her feet. She just looks so comfortable up there. Good solid aerial cartwheel, back handspring. I wonder if Tracy really realizes there's 7,500 people out there watching her. Just cool as a cucumber up there. Into her flare. There's a gaining back somersault. Tracy's long legs are an asset on this event, and her flexibility really makes her look nice up there. And I think she's really moving with quite a bit of fluidity. Back handspring, full twisting, back somersault off.
Tracy Talavera, the 1981 bronze medal winner in the balance beam in the World Games in Moscow.
And one of the new things that's happening on this event, girls are tumbling onto the beam. Round off back handspring. Tracy nails it.
Tracy Talavera's score, a 9-9. She'll be tough to beat. But Nancy Thies Marshall and Bart Connor were back at the Emerald Cup Gymnastics. And Nancy, let's update the beam competition.
Okay, first of all, we saw one of the young lions who's on the road to Los Angeles Olympics, Yumi Mordray. Aerial cartwheel, back handspring, back handspring. She's got a bright future ahead of her. Yumi was followed by veteran Kathy Johnson, who had a very smooth routine. Beautiful performer. Back walkover, right into a solid back somersault. And Tammy Smith had trouble during her routine, but finished with a daring double back somersault.
And that brought us to Gina Stallone, who had an outstanding routine. And here's our call.
There's an explosive mount front somersault. Gina will be trying to beat the mark set by Tracy Talavera, 9.9. She looks very smooth. Back handspring. Ooh, high tuck back somersault.
She seems very much in control.
She does. I see continuity in this routine, and that's really nice. There's a double turn. Now, that may not look very difficult, but it is one of the most difficult things to do. Mostly because you have to keep your balance as you rotate around an axis.
And the beam is only 4 inches wide.
Sometimes it's easy to forget that. Little front somersault.
She's performing like it's 4 feet wide.
That's the goal.
And with that double back dismount, Gina scored a 9-9, tying her with Tracy Talavera. Our co-winners are with Bart Connor.
You seem to do one of the more difficult balance beam routines in the meet. Do you really emphasize doing a lot of difficulty?
Well, my coach feels that the more difficult your routine is, the higher score that you'll get, so...
Well, I guess it worked, huh?
Yeah.
So congratulations. How about you, Tracy? How did it feel?
Well, it felt pretty good.
Now, what I want to know, really, the truth is you didn't give me a kiss after the last event. Am I going to get one this time?
No.
Well, one thing about Bart, he keeps trying. The official results the tie between Tracy Talavera and Gina Stallone.
And in the all-around, it's going down to the wire.
Of Gymnastics in Eugene, Oregon. Dick Mulvihill is the meet director here. He's also one of the most famous of the American coaches. And earlier I asked Dick what we are doing concerning the progress of women's gymnastics in this country.
And there's a few coaches, a few clubs that are really doing something. They're living and breathing preparation for 84. Our federation has not done a thing. Nothing. We haven't turned a pack. They haven't hung a piece of paper. They haven't done anything in the preparation for our athletes. Okay? And it's strictly up to the individual club and the individual coaches. Now, maybe that's the way it should be in the United States. Private enterprise, private initiative.
The problem that Dick faces, and is faced by every American coach, is that they simply have to wear too many hats. They have to raise their own money, run a community program. They're their own public relations man. But perhaps first and foremost, Dick must make sure that his own school survives. And in doing that, that alone dilutes the time that he can spend with his elite gymnasts, such as Julianne McNamara and Tracy Talavera. And with this in mind, I asked him, what are our chances for a medal in '84?
I think definitely that Tracy Talavera and Julianne have a fantastic chance to be the first to do it since, I think, 47. And again, they're not going to do it unless John Q. Public becomes as fanatic about it as I am and some others.
And I'm sure these sentiments are also echoed by Bill Strauss of Allentown, Pennsylvania, the coach of Gina Stallone, who is now performing in the floor exercise.
You know, Charlie, the first time we saw Gina was at the AAU Junior Olympics when NBC was there. My, she's come a long way since about 1978. Now she's a member of our national team. This is her last tumbling run, a very high double full. Gina Stallone.
And what a comeback she has had in this competition after the problems that she faced in the uneven parallel bars. Her score, a 9.75. And that brings up 22-year-old Kathy Johnson, known for her artistic routine in the floor exercise, to the music of Swan Lake. She's trying a new approach, and Nancy asked her about it.
Well, this floor routine is very different from what I've done in the past. Before, I always tried to put so much feeling, but the feeling was more almost, I don't want to say sadness, but, you know, poignant. And now I can be happy. I mean, it starts out in the beginning, I can even smile, and I feel freer, and I feel in more contact with the audience. And the audience really can get into it if I get into it, which builds the energy for me and makes the routine easier.
Let's enjoy the routine of Kathy Johnson.
High double back somersault. You know, Kathy is a very intense gymnast, but out on the floor exercise, she's able to hide that intensity. I think she becomes a very beautiful and obviously expressive performer. Nice 1.5 twist into it, another full twist. Very beautiful. Now the crowd gets involved. And her last tumbling run. Double full, very high. She's on to me.
All right, I like your new routine.
I think Kathy likes it, too. And the crowd obviously likes it.
And Kathy takes the lead in the floor exercise with a 9.80. We'll step in the floor exercise. She's currently second in the all-around competition.
Little bobble there. First tumbling run. Double back somersault. She's happy to make that one. Was in a pike position, which is more difficult.
Kathy Johnson leads the floor exercise with a 9.80.
going for a new tumbling run. Punch front somersault into a touchback double back. She made it. Look at the smile on her face. She's happy. Here comes the last tumbling run. Double fall, boy. Lots of power. Nice routine for Julianne.
And a neat way for her to finish the competition.
As she's applauded by some of her teammates. Let's take a look at that second tumbling run, which is new for Julianne. Mentioned earlier that some of the girls are using this competition to try new things. This is new. She does a punch front somersault, which she's always done, but she goes into a double back somersault. Now, remember, she had a double back in her first tumbling run. So to have two of them in the routine, boy, that's a lot of difficulty.
Julianne's score, a 9.75. She trails Kathy Johnson, who has a 9.8. And that brings up Tracy Talavera. Tracy needing a 9.6 to win the all-around.
And Tracy has been hot today. You know, this music just seems to exemplify Tracy's personality. Always going. There's her pike double back. Tracy's experience and style showing here. Punch front somersault into a double fall. Now watch for the change of pace. Performing in front of her hometown crowd. Last tumbling run coming up. If she hits this, she's home free. Another double fall.
And that could do it for Tracy Talavera, the current U.S. national champion.
And everybody in the place likes it. Look at the height that Tracy has here. She lifts with her arms, rotates, pulling in that pike, and makes it around with just a little bit of a bobble.
Tracy's score, a 9.85, so she wins the floor exercise over Kathy Johnson and Julianne McNamara. And that means that Tracy Talavera wins the all-around title. And our congratulations to Tracy Talavera. She was simply fabulous today.
She was hot. I think everybody did a good job. It was a great competition.
Fine.
I thought it was a great meet, too. I saw some of the best performances I've ever seen from the girls' team.
Now we have one final presentation still to be made. Tracy?